What is up, guys? Ajmarkle here with Holly Clark SFM, and welcome back to If Disney Animated Classics were released today, episode number 8. And today it is...
The Fox and the Hound.
This is one of the more sadder Disney movies ever. And before you ask, we know about the book, but for your sake, if you are not a teenager or a mature adult,
please do not read it. It's the most tragic thing you've ever seen.
Yeah, it's definitely something, alright.
Anyway, guys, uploads are 12 p.m. and 4 p.m. Eastern Time, and also support Holly on her channel, help her get to 6,000 subscribers. Anyway, let's get to it, starting off with the intro of Fox and the Hound, not the sequel.
So, the film was made in 1981, and the intro starts off where we hear gunshots and dogs barking, and then we see something running, and that something is a mother fox, and she's carrying a little fox, which is well known as a little kit in fox terminology for babies. She was running from the dogs, and then she was nearby the little gate area and put her little kits down there, and unfortunately she tried to escape. She got shot.
Off screen, so you don't see the actual incident, which is the same thing they did with another classic Disney classic from actually 40 years prior.
Exactly. And so it turns out that little kid fox is Todd, who wasn't named Todd then, but I'll still call him Todd anyway. So the owl, who watches the whole thing, who's known as Big Mama, gosh knows why, she comes over to Todd and tries to comfort him and saying, "It's okay, Big Mama's here." And he tries to hide from her. And then she tries to find something to do with him. So what she does is that she finds two of her bird friends, Dinky, who is the yellow little bird, and Boomer, who is a red woodpecker bird. And then we go on to Big Mama, Dinky, and Boomer having an idea on what to do with the little one. So they decided that Boomer will cause a distraction on one of the farmer's doors. And she opened it up, which pretty much nearly bent his beak. Ouch. And then Big Mama got some laundry and put it over the top of Todd. And that's when the other farmer came and tried to shoo them away. She tried to get her laundry, and next thing she knew, she saw the little kit, and Todd, being unsure about her, was trying to be all feisty and and trying to fight her, but of course she was strong, and she held him, took him inside, started feeding him milk, and then she named him Todd, and then he lives with her. Meanwhile,
we see Amos, the hunter, and he also has a new pet of his own. He has a hunting dog named Chief, but when he opened the door, a little basset hound known as Copper comes out. I believe that's I think a basset hound. I think it's a basset hound.
I think it's a bloodhound coonhound mix, babe.
Thank you. Either way, for the Chief Chief, that's the main dog's name. I don't know his breed. Comment down below. He basically has to learn to be a mentor to the young Copper. Over time, however, Copper decides to make friends with Todd, which completely goes against literally what Chief and Amos would want. And of course, there was the music that happened but sadly, over time, as things continued on, Amos had to basically kind of ground Copper for running off from the house, and it's happened not once but twice over time. And eventually, Amos and the old lady Tweety, I think was her name.
Widow Tweety.
Thank you. They had a bit of a hard time discussing because the third time, Copper was on a little rope, and Todd, who never really got the experience of being attacked like his mother did, oh boy, things went dark.
Yeah, this is when the scary thing comes.
Yeah, the Chief went after him. There was a chase scene. Amos complains about it, how she shouldn't own him, and she tells him off.
Well, yeah, not only does she tell him off, but this is probably the first part of the writing of this movie. He has a gun and tries to fire at Todd multiple times. He even shoots Widow Tweed's milk jugs, and then she was so angry that she shot his radiator in his car.
Which is it's one of those old vehicles that you have to turn and twist a little bit. For anyone that knows like machinery, that's what they used to do to crank up cars. Before they had keys for ignition, they had to like crank up the car and everything.
Yeah, and that's when the ongoing feud between the human owners started, in a way.
Yeah. And then after that, over time, there was winter, and of course, the birds were little comedy there. They were always trying to go after that one caterpillar, and they never. And spoiler alert, they never got the caterpillar. I don't know if it was a male or female.
I think it's a male, from what I remember.
Okay, so they complained. It was cold. It was snowing cold. And over time, Copper and Todd grow, like literally physically grow. And then of course, we see Todd, now a grown-up fox, but still with his collar on. But then, as things would, just like an old great movie, has to have a sudden turnaround. Todd and Copper would still have their friendship, but then another incident happened, which resulted in I believe Copper had watched Chief get hit by a train. Was this before or after Todd got dropped off?
This was after when Todd came to see Copper. And this is when I think, in a way, we can all relate to this about friendship and how friendship doesn't always last that long, because Copper, him being a hunter dog, would seem like it would prioritize his hunting skills, since he would know that foxes are prey. So in a way, could be like an anthropomorphic term of prejudice, in a way, like racism in some sort, but mostly prejudice.
Yeah,
but anyway,
it had nothing to do with race per se, but it had something to do with looking at an animal from the outside without judging what's at the heart. But anyway, there was another incident that happened, which resulted in Amos telling off Todd's owner that she shouldn't own him. So So this is where we get to probably the saddest scene in any Disney classic. If you don't believe me, you better hear it. So Todd was dropped off in the forest. His collar was taken off, and the sad music going in the background. He tried to follow.
And Willow Tweed narrating as well.
Willow Tweed ended up not only walking away, but when Todd tried to follow, she put her hand up and no. And he was abandoned. After that, Amos found out that Todd was gone. He went out hunting with Chief as the dog, but then a nasty incident changed everything between Copper and Todd's friendship. Earlier we mentioned this, so we're going to mention this in more detail. Chief was chasing the fox. Copper tried to distract them so that way Todd would be protected. This was probably one of the biggest moments in turnaround in their friendship. The choice between the owner and friendship. You'd think after that, though, Copper would probably stick with the friendship with Todd. But then everything changed. Todd was running on the railroad tracks, and he was escaping from Amos when Chief saw him. But as Todd turned around, the train was coming. Horn blazing and everything. Todd barely got out of the way, but Chief, in his hesitation, wasn't so lucky. He got hit by the train and broke his leg as he fell to the ravine. Copper ran over and blamed Todd for the incident, Chief, and swore revenge. This was probably the rockiest part for their friendship, and perhaps for some, it was the end. Meanwhile, Big Mama, who was looking for Todd, flew around and found a female fox, Vixie.
And now I know what you guys are all gonna say. Oh, these expressions look familiar. Well, that's because, as I mentioned in the first video of our series, Robin Hood, that Todd and Vixie are actually inspired and modeled by Robin Hood and Maid Marian. So that's why it looks very similar in it.
So to keep it family friendly, they basically went from animals and outfits to basically looking like how they would in the wild. So yeah, that's the best way. That's the best way I could say it without sounding too inappropriate. But over time, though, Todd was trying to survive on his own. He wasn't getting very luck. He was getting hungry, and then, meanwhile, Big Mom was with Vixie as they were trying to look for Todd, and they find him, and she gasped seeing how he was so dashing. Mopey, yes, but dashing. And her gasp caused Todd to look around, and he fell in love with Vixie. This is the definition of love at first sight, but wasn't always like that. Todd didn't understand how to take humor and everything, but he was, in his defense, he was not exactly the most happiest of foxes. I mean, just imagine you get abandoned by your owner and basically feel all alone, and you don't really know how to interact with other species like your own. I mean, Todd, in his defense, was never given that because his mother was killed. There was no mention of his father. So what ended up happening was after they had a bit of a spat, Big Mama helps them reconcile, and the purring of Vixie happens.
Oh boy!
And then it just gelled. However, it's safe to say now that Copper and Amos now had more of a deeper bond now, since Copper and Todd are kind of split apart. So he got hunting traps for any animal, which included Todd and perhaps others. It was a bear trap. But here's the problem: what he was doing was illegal. He did it on do not trespass territory, from what Holly told me, and was in the movie. So over time, everything began to get darker from there. Todd and Vixie had their, basically, I guess you might say, their relationship. But then Amos and Copper, who took over for Chief, by the way, who was wrestling with a broken leg, the chase began. Copper was chasing them, and they tried to hide basically in a little den. And then Amos started a fire and tried to spread it. They escaped through there, and no matter what they did, Copper was seen to always be on their tail. But then the biggest nightmare changed everything for Amos and Copper that very day. Remember hunting? The biggest, scariest thing that could ever happen to a hunter is being overwhelmed by an actual animal. This was in this case, a grizzly bear.
And a very angry grizzly bear. And I will say that there is some blood in this scene as well when Copper fights him, and also he grabs him by the snout and draws blood on him to drive him away from Amos. And then while Todd and Flexi are trying to escape, Copper gets hurt, and then he starts whining, and Todd hesitates in helping. And then when Copper is nearly about to get killed, Todd literally leaps on the bear.
There is one thing I forgot to mention. Amos would have helped, but he accidentally got his foot nailed on a trap that he originally was set for any animal. So some might call it that you get what you deserve. I honestly though, it's just sure the choices you make can cause a lot of trauma. So that's why Amos could not defend himself against the bear. So Todd fights the bear. The bear ends up falling over a waterfall, I believe.
Yeah.
And then Amos, Brits is gun ready to point at Todd, who was a little perplexed because he saved their lives. And Copper goes, "If he shoots you, he's going to shoot me too." This was probably the symbol of Todd taking a risk, even their friendship was falling apart and was almost gone because of their differences in their careers or lifestyles. Copper was able to make that stand and say, "Hey, I appreciate what you've done, but now it's my turn to do the right thing." He defends Todd, and Amos looked at Copper, and he left Todd alone. To this day, he never bothered their Todd again. But here's something else. Remember how I said Chief broke his leg? Well, Amos broke his foot. I guess what's happened when you step into the hunting business, sometimes you step on the wrong thing and end up putting a foot in your mouth. Okay, that was bad. I'm sorry.
It's okay. And then next thing we know is that we go back to where they live. Big Mama, Dinky, and Boomer look upon Amos being treated by Widow Tweed ironically, who's complaining about his foot while Widow Tweed's laughing it off, and Chief goes, brushing over a broken leg, which is pretty ironic considering he was doing that to try and get attention from his owner. But then, as the caterpillar that had been mentioned has grown into a little butterfly.
Freedom!
And then Copper is about to go to sleep. Then he smiles, remembering the moments he had with Todd, and there's a voiceover of Todd and Copper saying, "You're my very best friend. You're mine too, Todd. We'll always be friends forever, won't we?" "Yeah, forever."
Yep.
And then Todd watches over in the distance in silhouette form at the two houses, and Flexi comes along and snugles up to him. And
that's The Fox and the Hound. The Fox and the Hound was probably one of the saddest animated films with Disney, and as Holly said, severely underrated. But it still had a lot of dark moments. from the very beginning, Todd's mother was killed off screen by the hunter. Mostly, it's probably Amos. Maybe I think it is because there was not a lot of hunters in the area. And then there was the hunting lifestyle, which basically reveals that and some shooting, which just like the rescuers. But thankfully, the difference between the rescuers and the Fox and the Hound was there was no kids. Obviously, that's a big plus there. So
Yeah.
and as Holly said, there was a little blood. There was a lot of fighting scenes. There was a train hit. There was a lot of violence and theatric elements put into this, and for a rated G movie, that's pretty dark. But and also so in conclusion, with everything that's happened, it's obviously there was no language. There was a little blood, but I would probably give it a PG-13 because the weapons used for hunters, well, a gun, was basically a big thing that was used, and considering that hunters can end the animal's life, they basically could raise the bar. So PG-13 will be the rating if it was released today. That's the whole purpose of the series. We analyze the films, we talk of the synopsis, and then we conclude about what happens if it was released today. Fox and the Hound, another underrated classic, is probably going to be one of the darkest films we've probably ever done. The Lion King was very dark, which was not released not too long ago. The Rescuers was very, very dark. I'm sorry.
And The Rescuers is underrated, whereas The Lion King's a bit overrated, which I'll admit. People might be like, no, it's not overrated. Well, if you look at all the fan art and fan fiction, then you'll know what I mean.
Well, The Lion King actually in some areas isn't, because it actually explored different cultures and about Animal Kingdom. I mean, The Fox and the Hound, however, did explore the lifestyles of a fox and a hound. Obviously, that's the whole purpose of the film. And how hounds are basically supposed to be like hunting dogs, and foxes are the prey for those hunting dogs as well. So it does explore that area. 13 years before the actual movie of Lion King. The Lion King explored more the animal life versus the kind of the wildlife of how if a fox was raised and a hound were raised at the same time, how in the end both their decisions would change the life forever.
Yeah, well, two things I will point out is, one, there was a scene we didn't talk about in The Fox and the Hound, which I will actually mention, is the fact when Todd is still young, Big Mama and Dinky and Boomer show him the shed where there's all the animal furs, hunting traps, and that made Todd very scared, and he said those poor things, and which reminds me of that scene from a non-Disney film called Babe. And that scene is pretty dark because it shows not only like his potential death if he still was looming over copper and was still living by widow trade and that, so it was pretty dark. And another thing I will point out is that in the book version, I know we're not really going to talk about it, but I will point out one thing Disney did change, which would have been a good idea because it would have rated it more into an R in a way. So, you know how Chief was hit by the train and broke his leg?
Yeah.
Originally, he was killed in the book. He was killed off.
Yeah, I'll give Disney props for not being too morbid.
Yeah, and originally Todd and Fixie had cubs, well, kids. They got killed off, and so did Fixie. He had another mate, got killed, had another one, got killed.
Yeah. Disney, thank you for actually not going that morbid. And let's give Todd a life. Anyway, guys, that's Fox and the Hound. If you guys enjoyed, please give it a like, share, and subscribe. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. Stay tuned for episode 9 next week. And if you also want to keep up with all the films we talked about, there's a playlist at the end of the video that you guys could look into. And also, be sure to go to Holly's channel, help her get 6,000 subscribers. Hope to see you guys next video. You guys know what I'm going to say. God bless, you rock. Don't you ever forget it.
Be unique and be creative. Have a great day, everyone.